I had this great opening. I recorded it. I went to edit it. I didn't have the mic turned on. I've done that before and I've recovered from it. This one I can't recover from, so I've got to teach myself a lesson before I go on and make the rest of this video. Jalapeno. Seeds and all, that's hot. I got an 8-pound ribeye roast. I'm going to be smoking it for you today. I'm going to be getting ready to rub it. That's hot. Bring you back ribeye roast today. That's right, I got an 8-pound ribeye roast, and the first thing I got to get done is I got to get this rub made. This rub is really simple. We're going to go with about a ½ teaspoon of salt, about a teaspoon of paprika, maybe a little bit more. We can go with about a teaspoon of black pepper, maybe a couple teaspoons of garlic powder, and I have some of this Penzeys Northwoods Fire seasoning, which I love. I don't know, we're gonna go, I don't know, maybe teaspoon and a half of that. Then I have some Trader Joe's 21 seasoning salute. That's gonna go very heavily in here. Probably 2 or 3 tablespoons of this. This is gonna be sort of the big body of our rub. I'm going to cover this up and shake it to get it all mixed up. Let's give it a taste. Well, that's nice. I like that. That's good. This is our rub. A mix of pepper, salt, some Penzeys spices, paprika, garlic powder, Trader Joe's 21 seasoning salute. Nice little mix there. It's going to be good on this ribeye roast. So as you can see, we've got a nice 8-pound ribeye roast here. It's been tied up by the butcher, it's been trimmed. It's about, I think, 4 bones. Usually it's about 2 pounds per bone on a ribeye roast. So, got to get the rub on this. And I'm not using any sort of binder on the outside. I've mentioned that before many times. I don't feel they're always necessary. If you use one, some mustard, some Worcestershire sauce, that's fine. Don't forget these ends. All the edges. And these bones are good too. Want to get a nice coating on here. Let's rub that in there. All right, the ribeye roast is rubbed. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator for probably about 4 hours before we get it on the smoker. I'll bring you back when we're ready to cook. Okay, the Oklahoma Joe's Highland is up to temp. It's at 281 degrees right now, which is too hot for what I want to do. I want to keep it in that 225 range. That's fine though. Once I get this meat on there, it's going to drop and then I can moderate the temperature with the vents. So let's get this ribeye roast on. I'm going to be running a mix of hickory and pecan with a little bit of mesquite today. I do like some of that mesquite flavor with beef. I'm going to be putting this in with the thickest side towards the firebox, but placed about middle in the cooking chamber. Right about there. Now my temperature probe, I'm going to go for dead center. See how close I can get it. So if you can see in this sunlight, we have a pit temp of 216. It dropped once we opened the door and put that meat in there, and the meat temp is 38. So I've got that probe right where I want it in the coldest part of the meat. So it's time to close this up and let this ribeye roast start cooking. Nice clean smoke coming out of there. Love that hickory smell. So one of the ways I like to control the temperature on my Oklahoma Joes, I prefer not to use the smokestack adjustment if I can avoid it. I like to use just the doors. And what I have here is I have the damper, the little adjustable damper closed, and I just have the door open about an inch. This way I'm going to restrict that airflow. If I need to, I can close it even more. I find you can actually have a little bit better control using the door than the damper. Sometimes you have the damper open fully and that's just fine, and that's when the wood starts burning down. But this is the hot beginning of this fire, and so I need to sort of control it, and I use the door for that. Okay, so if you can see on here, it is 37 still internal meat, and the pit temp is 273. It raced up to 281, and so I adjusted the vents. It's starting to come down, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to set this thermometer, and I did a video on this too, on how to program the ThermoPro wireless, but I'm just going to let you see how I do it here too. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to set my barbecue high and low temperatures. So what I need to do is I need to hold this down until it flashes, and then I'm going to set that down because I want my high temperature alarm to be about 250. That way I'll know if it gets too hot, I can come at her, and then you hit mode light to set that. Now to set my barbecue low minimum temperature, I hold down the low min setting. It's flashing. I'm going to drop that down to about 210. That way it'll let me know if it drops below 210, hit mode light to set it. Now my food temperature today, I'm going to be taking this to 133 degrees, but I want to be alerted when it gets to 120. Because what I'm going to do when it gets to 120 is I'm actually going to move it closer to the firebox to get a little bit more of a crust on this ribeye roast. And so now it's set, temperature's continuing to come down. Just going to let it cook. Got good smoke coming out. In this light it looks a little thicker than it is. It's actually pretty thin. It's almost right where I want it to be. I'm guessing in about 5 minutes it's going to be just perfect sort of thinnish blue smoke. All right, so our internal meat temperature is 50 degrees. We've been going just under an hour, and our pit temperature has dropped to 211, so it's time to put some wood on. I'm going to put a piece of mesquite, probably my only piece of mesquite during this cook, but I want it in at the early part here to get some of that mesquite flavor. Just going to leave the door open here for a little bit while that mesquite catches. I know some people don't like the sort of the mesquite smell. I really do. Not as much as hickory, but I do like a smattering of mesquite on beef when you have a big piece of meat like this ribeye roast. I'm going to knock down a little bit of the ash here, get some better airflow under that piece of mesquite. We'll rake out the ash box probably in the next time we add wood. Starting to get our flames here. All right, we got flames coming. I know in this light it's really hard to see, but I'm going to close this up with the tongs under the door just like I did before until it gets established, and then we'll close it fully. I also have my little portable fan blowing and pointed right at the open damper to get some extra oxygen in there to help this log get going. I use this fan whenever I feel it's necessary, and I want this mesquite to get fully involved as quickly as possible. I don't want it to smolder and flame, I want it to really burn. So this extra airflow will help do that. All right, so our internal meat temperature is at about 94. Pit temperature dropped to 206. Time to put on some more wood. I'm gonna put a piece of hickory this time. We're about 2.5 hours into this cook, and I think we probably got another hour, maybe hour and a half to go. It's cooking pretty quickly here. You can see there that I also had added a little piece of pecan in a while ago. Give this a minute to catch. And then we're also going to take a quick look inside at the ribeye roast. See how we're looking in here. Oh, the smell is wonderful. Now the light right now doesn't do this justice because it's just so bright on it, but it looks beautiful and it smells amazing. Now one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that I added one water pan here. There's two on the smokestack side. I only filled one of them. I filled it after about an hour, so I just wanted to get a little bit more moisture in the cook chamber. and it's, you know, it's not even near boiling point in there right now, so it's just sitting and slowly releasing moisture. That crust on there is looking very, very nice. Let's get this closed so it can keep cooking. So our meat temperature is at about 96. I'm gonna wait until about 120 degrees, then I'm gonna move it closer to the firebox to help build maybe a little bit more crust on there, get a little more heat on it. But I'm gonna be pulling it at 133 and letting it rest. It'll probably carry over up to about 139, 140, and that's gonna be just about perfect for what I like and what everybody else likes who's gonna be eating this tonight. I'll bring you back when we're gonna move it closer to the firebox. All right, so our internal meat temperature is 118 right now, and our pit temp's a little high, 260, so it's perfect time actually to open it up, slide it down closer to the firebox, since we're gonna have to moderate that temperature with some vent usage. Ooh, sizzling. Now I'm using, you can see this nitrile gloves, and they have these polycotton liners, which are really useful. It allows you to grab meat, you know, briefly and move it. It's not for super hot pieces of meat and holding it a lot. It's just for quick moves, and it's really helpful in a situation like this. So let's move this down. Right about there. That's where we want it. So while I am out here, I'm going to actually use the instant read and see how we're doing. Let's see. Yeah, that's showing 120. That's upside down, but if you can read that upside down, yeah, it's 120, which is basically the exact temperature we wanted to move it over, so we're right on target. All right, let's close this up. Let it keep cooking until we're at 133. You can see that right there. The internal temperature of the meat is 134, so we're a degree past where we wanted to be. Pit temp dropped to 182 because I closed the vents down, so we need to get this ribeye roast out of there. Ooh, that really looks nice. All right, let's get our probe out. I'm just going to check it with the instant read just to confirm, but see, that's showing 130. Let's get down in there and make sure. 130. I'm actually going to leave it in just a few more minutes then. Let me get this probe back in there. I don't want it to go too far past, but let me plunge it in a little further and see if we get a different reading. Yeah, all right, so we're going to leave it in for a few more minutes. Always check with another thermometer. Just threw another little piece of hickory on there to help us finish this off. We've just got a few degrees to go, and so this wood won't even burn all the way through. I'll smother that and it'll be useful for another cook after this. But we got to get this up there. Got to get it to 133. That's where we want it. I believe we are done. Ooh, look at that. I'm going to take a quick read here. Yep, 134 now. So we are good. Let's get this baby out of here. Look at that. That's a nice looking ribeye roast. I'm gonna get it inside, let it rest for about 30 minutes. Then I'm gonna cut into this. Here is our rib roast. It's been sitting and resting for about half an hour under foil, and it's time to cut into this. But first, because it's tied up, we kind of have to disassemble it and cut these strings. Let's roll this a little bit here. You'll see what they do a lot of times is they completely separate the roast from the bones and they tie it back on. So we're going to separate this roast too. But those bones aren't going anywhere. We're going to save those because they are delicious. A lot of good meat in those. So there is our separated roast. So here you can see this is that underside of bones, that rack of beef ribs. And again, these are good. You can slice right down through here and eat that meat. You can cook it up some more if you want, but it's fully cooked. It's good. Here is our rib roast. So you can see here, this is the big hunk of meat without those ribs attached. And now I'm going to slice into it, and I'm going to start right at the center here. Oh yes. Look at that. That is beautiful. I'm going to set this piece to the side and we're going to cut the other one. How perfectly cooked that is in the center. Just exactly the way I wanted it. Now we're going to cut a thin slice. Oh, look at that. Medium rare to rare. Look at that. Pink. Just perfect. I can't wait any longer. I'm going to taste this. All right, here it goes. And just to warn you, my dogs are circling already. Here they both come. All right, I'm going to go for this piece with some of the nice crust on it. That'll do. Oh, that is so tender. So tender and so juicy. Mmm. That smoke, that rub. Oh, this is good. And this with a little piece of fat on it, because that fat is flavor. Wow. Very, very pleased with this. Mmm. Oh, man. The way I understand it, the ribeye roast comes from a slightly different section of the ribs than the prime rib. It's like further down, further up. I've had really good prime rib. I've had great prime rib. This is really, really good. Technically, it's not prime rib, but remember my screw up at the beginning where I had to eat the jalapeno to teach myself a lesson? This was worth it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to check out some of my other videos and consider subscribing and click that bell to get notifications. You all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.